What are you charging? $10 a dozen now?
Well, not right now. Well, they
What are you
haven't.
charging for your eggs?
Well, so they haven't been laying as much because it's been cold. So I actually
Uh-huh.
have been eating most of my eggs and giving some to the neighbors. I haven't been selling them. I haven't updated my sign. So I'm trying to decide what I want to sell my eggs for.
So right now, if you go to like a random grocery store, it's $6 a dozen
Oh
or
yeah, I
more.
was I was looking at the prices. I was looking at the prices at like Walmart. It was like $5.
You could get away with $6 a dozen
Yeah,
with no issues.
organic, free range, non-GMO.
In fact, at $6 a dozen, you'd probably sell out within an hour.
But that's what I'm saying. I could sell roosters, processed roosters, and people come and they give me $60 and I just give them a box and they open the box up and it's like hacked up bloody chicken bits.
Yeah, they don't want that.
It's like leaking. The box is stained.
Yeah,
It's like
they don't
dripping out
want.
of the bottom. The blood is dripping out of the bottom.
This isn't like rural Alabama. You can't just like hand somebody a box of half chopped up chicken and
No,
say
that's the
here,
real. That's that real shit. I'll
give me
pluck
six
them.
thousand yen for this.
I'll pluck them. I'll pluck them. And here we are back again with the count. Count. I feel like it's kind of another disappointing. Like, not that talking to you is disappointing, but we were gonna do a podcast about retirement and saving and investment strategies, and we thought it would be really cool to have Dave Ramsey on the podcast. And I believe you said that he was going to do it, right? Like, what
Yeah,
happened to that?
yeah. So he flew in.
Yeah.
We He was ready to come to the studio. He was ready to do the podcast. We were getting some lunch beforehand with our sound guy Steve,
Yeah.
and Steve looks over at Dave and says, "Can I borrow the salt?" And Dave just lost it. Okay, Dave started foaming at the mouth. He said, if you can't afford the salt, you don't need it. You don't need salt on credit. He took the salt shaker, he threw it at the waitress, and just walked out. It was
That's
it was something else.
that's wild. So he's opposed to salt on credit.
Apparently, the guy just wanted to borrow the salt.
Yeah, I don't man, that's I've hopefully we can mend that relationship because I feel like he would be an interesting guy to talk to, and I feel like that's a colloquialism, you know?
I think it is.
Like, we weren't going to pay back the salt.
Yeah,
It wasn't a
but
loan.
I think he's completely against borrowing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I respect that. From now on, for those of you listening, if you should ever see Dave Ramsey at a diner, which is not probably pretty frequent because I don't think he eats out a lot, uh, don't ask to borrow the salt. Just say, "Can I have some?
Yeah,
Can I
just say,
have?
"Will you give me some?"
Give me 10% of your salt."
Yeah, you have to give him a number too, or
Yes.
uh,
Well, that's the
he might be
tithe.
thirsty.
That's, can you tithe me some salt?
Well, I guess we should get on without Dave Ramsey.
All right. Well, in lieu of Dave Ramsey, what are we talking about today? We're talking about the
Talking about
stonks. We're talking
retirement.
about stonks.
We're talking about stonks. We're talking about houses. We're talking about Japan maxing,
Oh, I love Japan.
the new hip strategy coming to you. Uh,
What is Japan maxing?
oh, okay. So Japan maxing is this idea that you can buy a house really cheap in Japan.
Is that true? I thought that Japan had high inflation.
Well, yes, but it only means US dollars are worth more. So historically, we've traded historically last 20, 30 years, we've been trading about
About
100 to 1.
100 to 1, 100 yen.
Yep. Now it's about 150 to 1.
Oh, really?
So your dollar goes a lot further in Japan.
Okay. So
And then they
you're
also kind of have a
arbitraging.
population. Yeah. And that combined with their population collapse means that real estate is extremely cheap over here. Over there.
So unlike Canada, I just talked to Zin the other day about Canada, and they're importing all these Pajits, and so their housing prices are going up because they're importing more people. But Japan, they're not importing people, but they are also not having people. So their people are dying. So there's all these empty houses.
Yep. Well, they aren't importing people yet.
Do you think they're going to import people?
Flip the coin.
We got to get in before. You know what I mean?
But now, Japan maxing goes one step further.
You got to speak Japanese.
Oh, no, you don't have to speak Japanese. That's what Google translates for. But the idea of Japan maxing isn't just getting a cheap house.
Sure.
And living in it, right? The idea of Japan maxing is getting a 10 to 14 unit apartment complex.
Well, now that sounds pricey.
You'd be surprised. So about $500,000 US.
Okay. Which is what you're paying for a house these days anyway.
Yeah. That's what you'd pay for a nice 4-bedroom house.
Zoomers are in the chat right now furious. It's like, oh, it's just a $500,000 house.
$3,000 a month after you're 20% down.
Yeah, it's 20%. 20% down on a $500,000 is 100,000. So
who doesn't have 100,000?
when you drop your $100,000 on your house so that you can get your first home, like your parents did when they were your age, you could instead buy an apartment complex in Japan.
Yes. So that'll get you about 8 units, 500 square feet apiece.
And that sounds small, but it's Japan, so they're used to it.
Well, here's what you do, okay? You don't buy the apartment complex by yourself.
Okay.
You and 4 other friends
buy apartment.
An 8-bedroom or an 8 apartment complex.
You and 4 friends. So each of you effectively have 2 apartments.
Well, you have.
It's not exactly like that, but
you have each person has their own apartment,
right?
And then you have 3 apartments left over. One can be turned into a kitchen.
Well, wouldn't you have 4 apartments left over?
No,
you have 4 friends.
5 is 3.
Oh, you have 5 friends. You and 4 friends.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the that SNL skit from the 90s where it's like the 2 brothers restaurant and there's 3 brothers. He's like, no, it's me and my 2 brothers. He's like, yeah, but there's 3 of you, and the guy doesn't get it. Anyway.
But yeah, so you basically take one of the extra apartments, you turn it into a kitchen because Japanese kitchens suck.
Yes,
they're tiny.
Yeah,
and then you take the other 2 apartments and then you turn them into shared living rooms.
Okay. I mean, that does sound fun.
Yeah.
That sounds like a fun reality TV show.
And that's $100,000 a piece, right? That's not a lot.
That's not a lot.
You take out a mortgage on that. What is that, a few $100 a month?
Yeah, I mean, it would depend. But, theoretically, you're supposed to have $100,000 for a 20% down payment anyway. So you just pay cash and then you don't have a mortgage.
Yeah. And let's say you don't want to use one of those rooms. Let's say your buddy bails on the deal. You just rent it out to some Japanese person.
There you go. Now, now if you're working remote, this is doable. Although there is a time difference. There's like a 9-hour time difference if you live in Japan.
Well, I mean, you're just on the same time zone as India.
It's more closely too, right? Yeah, that is true.
Within an hour or 2 of India from Japan.
So you're saying I'm going to become a offshore contractor, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, you can manage a whole team of Indians from your Japanese apartment.
See, now this is what I like to hear. This is geo arbitrage. I was talking to GLO the other day. Unfortunately, I fucked up the audio. I was recording a podcast with another guy, and I fucked up the audio, so I have to re-record it. But he lives in Mexico, and he was saying that he doesn't pay U.S. taxes, which you also wouldn't if you lived in Japan.
Well, the first 120,000 for
Yeah,
your foreign earned income.
yeah, but you would not have to pay Japanese taxes either. I think is how it works, or how does that work?
You can usually get around foreign taxes.
They're like it's kind
By,
of like they're not. It's not a real country, so you don't have to give them money.
I mean, if you open a bank account in like Nevis or Panama or the Cook Islands, then you can just funnel money there, and the Japanese won't see it.
What would prevent me from doing that now and having the Americans not see it?
Um, the American Navy.
Well, but I mean, the American Navy's not looking at my bank account.
Well, they actually do. The Swiss don't even let Americans have bank accounts there anymore.
Yes, I did hear about that actually. And
Yeah.
actually, that's also true in the Cayman Islands, unless you have a very large account,
Yep.
because the like regulatory burden for them is not worth the hassle unless you have like billions of dollars.
Oh yeah. I mean, they don't want to hide your money for you
Right.
because the U.S. will come and sanction you.
Yeah. So in order to not have them get fucked, they do actually comply with all the banking regulations of the United States. But then that is too expensive. They have to hire lawyers, they have to do shit. So unless you have enough money to where they're earning interest on holding your money for you, they're not going to fuck with you. They don't want to talk to you.
Yep. And I mean, so for those listening to the call that don't know, basically Obama passed the law, the foreign earned income and tax filing FACTA is what it's called. I don't know the exact abbreviation, but basically you're supposed to
DACA.
report all income if
Right.
you're a United States citizen, even if you don't live in the United States.
Right.
And you get a deduction on the first $120,000 a year, about, depending on the year. And you also get other exemptions for taxes paid in foreign countries. So basically, it stops you from moving to Panama and living completely tax free, making $1 million a year.
Well, but if you move to Canada, oh, making $1 million, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're moving to a place where you pay no taxes, then you have to give it to the United States.
Yeah. But let's talk about things that might be, maybe, dare I say, a little more realistic for the average viewer, right? Because
Well, let's piggyback off that, and let's go into retirement, right?
yeah.
So,
First
because
of all, what
this all does tie in.
okay. So retirement in general, I mean, there's Social Security, which is kind of falling apart, right? If you're Well, actually, let me get your opinion on this. Do you think that Social Security will still exist in 30 years?
Um, almost certainly,
You think it will?
almost certainly, or they're gonna pick a cutoff generation.
Right, but I mean, like, based, like, I guess the reason I'm asking is like based on the numbers, right? Is like, if the national debt grows to such a degree that interest on the national debt eclipses all of their spending to the point where they actually have to make cuts, right? Social Security is the number one expense of the federal government.
Well,
And,
no, so Social Security is funded differently, though.
well, in theory, but not in practice, because the the FICA that's withdrawn from your uh, paycheck, the tax revenue that they receive from FICA is not is that goes to both Social Security and Medicare, and it's not even enough to cover just Social Security. Like, they get like 1.7 trillion in FICA, and they pay out like 2.3 trillion in Social Security plus another 1.8 million in Medicare.
Oh yeah, so that's basically we're basically funding Social Security with the national debt, then, aren't we?
Yeah. And then there's
Well, I
also
mean,
the
there's
issue that in the 90s, they basically, well, not even just the 90s, like whenever Social Security was a thing, whenever it was like not the way that it is now, when they were making enough, the way that it was quote unquote invested was that they just bought treasuries with it. So they basically just loaned the money to the government, right? So
yeah.
sitting in the Social Security trust is a bunch of treasury bonds that are IOUs that if the government if they wanted to pay that out, they have to redeem those coupons, which means that the government has to print money just to give it to them so that they can send it to the elderly. Because they don't have
Well,
because we're running a deficit, right? So they can't.
that's true. Yeah, yeah. And then Clinton also put a bunch of people that were on welfare on Social Security disability,
Oh, really?
stressing the system more. Yeah, yeah. So that's how. So Bill Clinton was famous for getting people off welfare.
That's
Uh,
right.
but what he actually did
He
was
just moved them around.
he identified everybody on welfare that was disabled and then put
Ah.
them on Social Security,
Mm.
and that's all he did.
I have heard there was some other sort of like scammy thing that was happening with Social Security, or not with Social Security, with disability, where they were basically encouraging people to claim disability, and like the number of people on disability has like skyrocketed, and they use that as an excuse to say that like, oh, but we're getting people off welfare. And it's like, yeah, but now they're just on disability and you're giving them like opiates.
Well, I mean, once we cure obesity,
we
I
already
think
we
our
already did. It's Ozempic.
yeah, but I mean, it's going to take a few years to cycle through, right?
Yeah, and it has to get cheaper, right? Like poor people can't afford Ozempic yet.
Yeah, I mean, really, what we need to do is invade Norway, take over Eli Lilly, and start handing Ozempic out, or sorry, Novo Nordisk, and start handing Ozempic out to everybody we can
Yeah,
to combat our fat people problem,
yeah.
and
Well, but
just get fat.
if you've ever played Risk, you know that before we can invade Norway, we first have to take Greenland.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, which is probably why Trump wants Greenland,
Oh, 100%.
so that we can
But
get
no, I think
Norway.
Social Security is fine, and I don't think it's going anywhere. If you look at the top Googled things
Hmm.
almost every day, Social Security payments are one of them.
The top Googled things. What does that?
Yep.
What does that indicate, though?
People are constantly asking where their Social Security checks are.
Well, the answer might one day be up your ass. Like, I mean, like just because they're Googling it doesn't make it.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of pissed off old people.
Well, that's why they haven't done anything to address the problems with it, right? Is because do you remember that ad back in 2012 when Paul Ryan was proposing some like very moderate austerity measures for Social Security, that the intention of which was to prolong it from collapsing, like, and it was like, oh, you have to like wait an extra year to take some payments, and like the cola might not rise as fast or something. And they were portraying him. There was an attack ad put out by the Obama campaign that he was trying to push your grandma off a cliff, and like literally they had like a lady in a wheelchair and he was like pushing her off the cliff. So like nobody can touch Social Security because of exactly what you just said, right? But at the same time, somebody has to touch Social Security because it's not.
I, it'll get to the point where people start looking at it, and the politicians are going to come out and they're going to say, "Well, we have to push it back a year, or it's going to collapse."
Right.
That's going to be the compromise, and it's going to move from 65 to 66.
I think it actually did move. I think it's 67.
Oh, is it now?
Don't quote me on that. Or it's like there's like an option to start later or
Oh,
something.
that's the option to basically take your money now, or take more later at a higher rate.
Oh, okay. So so they're saying like if you wait, we'll give you more later.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't seem like it's going to help
So
that much.
so you could okay, so you can start at 62
Oh, wow. Okay.
and or you can delay all the way up to 67.
And it
Oh,
increases by
67, 67 is normal retirement age under Social Security, or you can wait to 70 to get even more money.
8% for each year that you wait. And they're
Yeah.
probably basing that on how much how much savings they get from not paying you out, and then they just hope that you die.
Yeah, so I mean they can kick the Social Security can back a few years. They can bump it to 68, 69.
But either way,
All,
if you're banking on Social Security for your retirement and you don't have anything else, you're probably not going to be living a very comfortable retirement.
oh, not at all. Oh, not at all. If you only have Social Security, you're fucked.
And you can't just put your money in under your mattress because
No, but
inflation will eat up all of your value. So you have to
for
invest in the stock market.
yeah, you have to put your money in stocks or bonds.
You got to get into bonds. So what would you suggest to a youngster or even an oldster, someone who doesn't maybe have a ton of savings?
Well, we have to think about it from like we basically have three retirement vessels in the United States.
Okay.
We have well, excluding Social Security, so we have three like private retirement vessels
Yeah.
um, that are common. So we have 401ks,
Yeah.
we have IRAs, and we have Roth IRAs.
What is the difference between a 401k and an IRA? Because I know the Roth stuff is the tax differences, but I feel like a 401k and a regular IRA are kind of the same.
Well, I'll explain it real quick. So 401k is usually a company sponsored
Okay. But
retirement plan where
is that
they
only
can
company sponsored? Like,
generally only company sponsored.
okay.
And so there's an optional match that the company can participate in as well to save some tax dollars. An IRA is very similar, and you can write off your contributions if you're low income. So you know how a
Oh.
401k is pre-tax?
Yeah.
So a normal 401k is pre-tax, so you don't get taxed on the money you put in. You get taxed when it comes out. An IRA is similar if you're under a certain income limit. So if you're
Oh.
very young and you don't make very much money, you could max both a 401k and an IRA.
Well, if you didn't make very much money, you can't even I mean, you can max up, you can put 23,000 in a 401k.
Per year. Yeah.
If you if I mean, I guess if you lived with your parents and you didn't
I mean,
have
if you're 16 and you work at Sheets and you make 10 bucks an hour,
yeah, but
you
why
know,
would you
15 bucks an hour.
but doesn't that seems like I don't know. I would hesitate to tell someone to put all of their money into a retirement account because who knows what's going to be like cuz you're not going to retire for 50 years, right?
Yeah, but why not? Right? You don't have any other expenses.
Yeah, but you could put that money into a regular investment account and you could take it out whenever you wanted to because you'll get penalized if you try to take it out early if it's in a retirement account. So there are
Well,
tax
that's true.
advantages. There are
That's
tax
true.
advantages, but there's
So
also
here's the real tax advantage of a 401k is let's say you're a high earner, you put a lot of money in your 401k, you max it out every year.
yeah.
You don't have to take distributions of that money in the United States.
Explain.
So 401k is pre-tax money. It gets taxed when you take it out.
Right.
If we go back to what we were talking about with the foreign earned income,
Okay.
you don't pay tax on the first $120,000 a year.
So if you, and this is probably what a lot of these like quote unquote expats are doing, right? Is they
Yep.
have a 401k and they go down to Panama or Costa Rica or whatever,
Even Mexico.
or Mexico, Yucatan. Yucatan is nice.
Yeah.
I've been there. And they withdraw from their 401k, but as long as they're withdrawing less than 120,000, then they don't have to pay any taxes, even though it's
Yeah.
supposed to be, even though they didn't pay taxes on it because it was pre-tax when they put it in.
Yep. So basically, what you do is you go and take out. You can take out 10,000 a month. Call it. You
Sure.
take out 10,000 a month. You spend five. You put the other five back in your normal bank account. And so you're basically taking out 60 grand a year from your 401k tax free that doesn't even go to living expenses. So you do that for 10 years, you pull out 600,000 bucks from it,
Yeah.
which is kind of at the higher end for 401ks, a million to 2 million. And then you have a great time in Mexico, living pretty cheaply, and then you come back to the States when you're tired of it.
Well, but you would have to be kind of like old, right? Because you'd be drawing your retirement, so you probably would never end up coming back to the States.
Well, you never know. So you could be, I think you start withdrawing as a 55 and a half.
From the 401ks?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not so bad. I mean, you're still kind of
Oh, 59
old.
and a half. That's what it is. So you're not dying, right? 60's not
Yeah.
dying anymore.
60 is the new 40.
Yeah, 60's the new 52. So that's a great way to just kind of hide money and avoid the taxes. And then you're not playing the games with the Roth 401k. And if you're a high earner, if you're earning over $100,000, $200,000 a year, then you're avoiding a lot of taxes
I think I
with
dumped
that
a
strategy.
I think I dumped a shit ton of money into a Roth IRA at that company that you and I worked at,
Ah,
where
yes.
I was actually a W-2, and because I was job stacking, I like didn't necessarily need that money, so I maxed out my 401k, and they actually had a Roth 401k plan, which I thought that you weren't allowed to contribute to if you didn't have, or if you made over a certain amount, which I definitely do. But
Well, that only factors in for Roth IRAs.
right, Roth IRA,
It
which is
doesn't it
different.
doesn't matter for Roth 401ks. But I think in the end a Roth 401k is a bad investment. So
A Roth 401k. Maybe I
yeah, so
did.
Roth
Did I not
401ks
do
are
that?
pro-tax.
Because I have a
I think you,
rollover IRA and I have a rollover Roth, but I don't have
well, they
a.
didn't match there, so
Yeah, they didn't match. And I have a SEP IRA. If you have your own business, you can contribute to a self-employed IRA, and then you can contribute. You can match yourself from your own business. So instead of maxing out at 23,000 or whatever it is, you can max out at 56,000. Did you know that?
it's 56,000 or what, a quarter of your income?
Uh, yeah, probably there's a stipulation on it,
Yeah.
but I didn't do that, by the way, because I'm trying to retire early, so I'm not
Well,
really maxing out retirement accounts because I don't want to have to wait.
it's not the worst idea to max out retirement accounts, right? Because you could literally just burn down your investments until you get to retirement age.
Yeah, well, no, if you're job stacking and like I did, like that's what I maxed out the 401k at the last place that I was a W-2 at. But, for me, my current goal is to dump it all into a regular investment account and just buy QYLD and then live off the interest, the 11% interest of my QYLD.
You want to explain what QYLD is for those who don't know?
For those who don't know, QYLD, sometimes known as the Quaaludes, is a exchange traded fund that leverages covered calls on the NASDAQ triple Q in order to pay out exceedingly high dividends. Well, I wouldn't even say that they're exceedingly high, except that in our fake and gay economy, all these companies are growth based instead of like, there's no, like, basically if you're investing in a company or something like that, you would want to get 10 to 15% interest, or else it's not worth your time, right? Like if you bought a house, you wouldn't buy a house if the rents that you could collect on the house weren't going to net you like 10% over the mortgage. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, historical of the S&P is like 7.5.
Right. And that's an index fund.
Yeah, like the over 10% is a low interest rate phenomenon event.
Well, it's a high interest rate. Or no, I mean it's a high. You're saying that getting
Due to the
10%.
low interest rates from the Fed, like we're still at historic lows, believe it or not.
Oh yeah.
10%
Well,
return on investments are
5% is reasonable. A 5%
yeah.
Fed overnight funds rate is reasonable, but it's not high.
No, it's
average.
We're on the lower end of average.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, I was watching Die Hard the other day, and the villain in that movie, he wants to take the money that he's stealing and buy bonds with it. And his line in the movie is literally, "I'll sit on a beach making 20%." And I was like, "You son of a bitch!" But
yeah, bond rates in the United States got up to 18% there for a little while back in the 80s.
Yeah, but and that movie was made in the 80s, so it was like accurate at the time that he said that. But yeah, so basically by leveraging covered, all this is to say, oh well, let me give my housing example again, right? Because like what people were sort of mocked for what people who got really burned in 2008. I mean, obviously there were people that got fucked just because they bought at the wrong time or whatever. But people who got like the retards, like what they were doing was they were over leveraged in the housing market because they assumed that housing prices would always go up. So they would buy a house that was already overpriced as an investment property. And they would, but they weren't looking at, oh, what are the rents in this area? Like, is this a reasonable investment? They were speculating that the price of the house would go up in the future and they would be able to flip it, right? And sometimes that happens and that's cool, but that's not really an investment. Like I said, that's a speculation, right? Like if you were a real estate investor, you would buy a property with the intention of holding it long term and collecting rents in a profitable way, right? So your rent income would be higher than your mortgage, and you would be making 10% on your investment, or else it's not worth the risk of putting down all that money, right? So in the stock market, like, you know, if you read Benjamin Graham or somebody from like the 50s, you know, they were expecting when they were investing, or even like what's his face, Buffett. Yeah, yeah. Like the best length of time to hold a stock is forever, right? Like he would want to be like, but you wouldn't want to hold a stock forever if it didn't pay dividends, right? Because that would be worthless. So, you know, he's expecting to make a return on his investment without having to exit his position. And so that's what I'm looking at when I'm looking at QILD, is it pays, I guess, 11% right now. dividends, which is quite high. Now they have to do some tomfoolery where sometimes it's return on capital depending on how the market is, right? But
Well, that's actually better though.
well, it's better from a tax perspective, but it is actually return on, like, if they did all return of capital, then you would run out of like shares, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because
Well,
they are
no,
returning your
well, so
capital.
right now, QILD is trading at about $17 a share
17, yeah,
and change. We'll
yeah,
call it. So we'll call it
1726,
17 for the sake of this conversation. So
1740.
yeah, so they'll pay a 17-cent dividend probably at the end of this month,
Yeah, for each share.
uh, and then they'll generally pay that about 15 cents return on capital, and the rest of it is profit. For the profit, you pay a tax on. The return on capital, you don't.
Right.
But what it does do is it lowers your cost bias. So if you bought those shares for $17 a piece, you now own those shares at 16.83, 84 a piece, we'll call it.
Yeah.
And
Which
every
is
time you
good.
pay return on capital, your cost bias will go down. Now, if the stock keeps going up, or if you keep reinvesting the money, you'll never hit the bottom of the return on capital.
Right. But if you keep reinvesting the money, you also won't be doing the thing where you're living off the interest.
True. True. So eventually, at a long enough time span, that return on capital will be taxable and your cost bias for the shares will be zero, which means you'll own long-term capital gains, which is about 15% unless you're very rich, on whatever proceeds from the sale, and then you'll owe your normal income rate on the dividends after that.
Yeah.
So it is a very nice burn down stock. So if you want to retire in the next, or if you want to retire for the next 15 to 20 years, QILD is a fantastic investment, in my opinion.
Yes.
What do I know?
What do you
I'm some
know?
guy on the fucking internet.
Well, I'm doing that.
I think it's good to mix your high income dividend with growth,
Yeah.
right? So if you're listening to this podcast, then you shouldn't really look at QILD as
Growth.
an
You
avenue
shouldn't
to
look
put
at
all of your money in.
you
But if
shouldn't
you
look
look
at
at
it as
QILD
growth.
and you say, I'm going to pay my cell phone bill with QILD, and then I'm going to pay my electric bill, and then I'm going to pay my rent, and then I'm going to pay my car too, and then all of a sudden you're basically retired.
Yeah. But it's a matter of what percentage of your investments are you putting into QILD versus other shit.
I like 50-50.
50-50?
I like 50-50. 50-50 high income and long-term growth. You never know when you're going to die, right?
That is true.
You'll never know if you're going to make it to your
You're never
401k withdrawal
to your
age until you get there.
401k. Exactly.
Yeah. So you should take 50% of your money and you should invest it like you're going to die in the next few months, and you should take the other 50% and invest it like you're going to die in the next 50 years.
50%. Now, what percentage of your income would you invest versus spend, right? Because also you got to live, right? And I was talking to Walt the other day, a while back, and he was a little bit more. He's a little bit more on the like make it rain side of the house. And that this might not be still accurate, but when I was talking to him, that was what he was talking about. I was like, yeah, like you got to live it up with all this extra income. And I was like, yeah, to an extent, like especially if you're young, if you're in your 20s, but you know, you also don't want to be poor when you're old.
I think you need to do it in waves.
What do you mean by waves?
Like, okay, so if you're 16
Yeah,
and you're earning money, you need to save all of it. Like,
because all your living expenses are paid for already.
all of your living expenses are paid for. What are you going to do? Fucking take your girlfriend to the fucking smoothie shop in the mall? Like, come on.
I mean,
You know,
maybe
maybe, but like, if you're
you could
16, you need to save as much as possible.
you could take her to
Okay.
the movies, get that Bobert hand job.
Movies aren't that expensive.
I think movies are super expensive. I don't know. Like
No,
they don't even
no,
make good movies anymore. But I think the movies
no.
is like $25 or something.
Like, go to a matinee with your fucking girlfriend, okay? Just go to a fucking
Let
matinee.
me look up matinee
The
prices.
Alamo Draft House has movies for like $8 to $12 a ticket.
Alamo Draft House is my preferred cinema. I will say that.
Yeah, that's the best cinema to go to. We're not sponsored by Alamo Draft House,
Oh,
but we could be.
this this podcast brought to you by Alamo Draft House. Alamo Draft House, the official sponsor of the October 7th terrorist attacks.
Well, that's not what the script says. It says this is the official sponsor of getting a hand job when you're 14, dude.
Yeah. I mean, hold on. I'm looking at their website to try and see buy tickets. I haven't even heard of any of these movies, by the way.
I
The
I don't
last
think anybody has.
the last I click the button and it doesn't do anything. Is my JavaScript disabled?
But yes, the movies, you could take your girlfriend to the movies. If you're 16, you should be saving as much money as humanly possible.
How much does it cost?
$10.
Oh, that's cheap.
Ten,
I mean, that's
10 bucks
not.
for $10 for a ticket, $7 for a matinee. For $20, you can take your girlfriend to go see.
Yeah, but you got to get popcorn. That's where they get you. The popcorn's like
Oh,
$20.
popcorn's like $6
Six
for the
bucks for
giant
popcorn?
one that you can keep refilling.
Oh, it's full refills.
It's free refills, yeah,
And
yeah,
they've got the quarter pounder with cheese. Now I want to
yeah. You
go.
get a burger too.
Now I kind of want to go to the Alamo Draft House. We should
Well,
go. There's no good movies though.
there's no good movies except Vampire Hunter D. But hey,
Is that out?
it's an old movie.
Oh yeah, they do the like silly movies there.
They do like classics all the time.
Yeah, like I saw the Holy Grail, the Monty Python in theaters there.
But if you're 16, you should be saving money. The second you hit 16 to 20, save your money. The second you hit 21, 22, 23, 24, you should be out there partying every night. By the time that you hit your late 20s, you should go back to saving money. Then when you hit your 30s, 31, 32, you start partying again, this time with the older crowd. And just rinse and repeat that cycle until you're dead.
So party until you get bored of it, and then chill for a few years, and then once you start getting restless, party again.
Nobody wants to party with people that are 27. Okay? It's
Is
just a fact.
27 is our 27-year-olds? There is a Minecraft movie. A movie about Minecraft. It's got Jack Black in it.
I will not be watching that.
No, Jesus Christ. The fuck? Four Misfits. Jason Momoa is in it. Some people I've never heard of. But that's Jack Black in the picture, I'm pretty sure. He's not one of the main characters? Oh, there he is. Jack Black is Steve.
I'm pretty sure that's the main character in Minecraft.
That is the main character in Minecraft, but apparently he's not the main character in this movie because I think there's like little they're like carrying little square wood squares around. What the fuck, dude? This is not real.
In theaters April 4th.
That's so
Yeah,
retarded.
it's
That's
real.
That's so fucking retarded. We should go watch that just because.
No, I kind of don't want to give more money to Microsoft
That's a good point.
or Jack Black.
Oh, he's retarded now, huh?
Yeah, he did the whole kill Trump thing, and then he got kicked out of Australia, I think.
Which is funny because like I would think that Australia would support that because they're the ones with the concentration camps and shit.
Oh yeah, they did have the concentration camps
Yeah.
multiple times.
Yes. That's what they're known for.
Yep.
But we're okay. So nobody want. Why do you say that no one wants to party with a 27-year-old? And if you're 27 and you're listening to this, know that I do not want to party with you.
Yeah, I mean, what everybody gets bored of. Half the people get bored of partying by the time they're 24.
Well, you should. If you don't, like, there's nothing. You don't want to be the Uncle Rico guy.
Yeah, like the people that are still partying at 27, from 24 to 27, are it's Uncle Rico, right?
Yeah.
You know.
But then you're
And-
saying get back into it at like 31.
yeah, because that's when you can start partying with all the lawyers and doctors and
Mm.
the highly educated, the country club folk.
People that spent their 20s in law school or medical school and they're like
Yep.
ready to go and they also have money.
They finally got done. They're out of law school. They're out of med school. They're finally starting to pay down their student loan debt. They have a $200,000 a year job. They're married to somebody with the same amount of money.
Yeah.
And they're ready to go.
What are they going to go to Vegas? What are they going to do?
Everywhere and anywhere, man. Down at the local bar.
Down at the
Doesn't
local
matter.
bar?
Down at the country club.
I've never partied at a country club. I feel like we should go do that.
I mean, you can just kind of show up.
Do you have to be a member of the club before they'll let you in?
Well, see, that's the thing about country clubs. It depends.
Yeah. How much is a membership?
What kind of membership?
Whatever gets me in to the party.
So we can get you down at the local country club for about 2,000 a year.
I mean, that's not bad.
Yeah, like anybody can afford $2,000 a year.
But,
Like,
that does mean that I don't want to be a member of a club that would have me as a member.
well, that's fair, but that's just the cheapest membership. Like the golf
Yeah.
membership, 20 grand.
Yeah, but I don't play golf.
Yeah, who does?
Yeah. Charles Barkley.
Their food's terrible too.
What is it? So what they have because they have a dinner place there. I feel like it would be like too many old people at the country club. Like, are there
It's
cool
like
people at the country club?
no, it's like faux fancy. It's like the food is just bad. It's like it suffers from like rich people bad food syndrome. Have you ever noticed that?
Um,
Like,
I don't know.
well, okay, well let me explain it, and it might make a little bit more sense.
Okay.
So there's a large like subset of rich people from like the 1 million to 20 million, $30 million net worth range.
I feel personally attacked. Continue.
Good. You should. That have no taste in food. That just eat literal dog shit all of the time.
Now that's because if you have like $1 to $5 million, let's say, you're
Yeah.
not actually rich. These are the people. If you're like, especially if like, depending on your age, like that's a lot in your 20s, but that's not that much when you're 60 because you kind of need that to retire, right? So these are the people that are building McMansions.
Yep.
These are the people that like he had a septic tank cleaning company that he started, and he made a bunch of money, or he's a pool guy, and he's got money. He's got $2 million in his bank account,
I mean, but it's not just that. There's a lot of doctors, lawyers, PhDs
PhDs don't
in the
make any
same boat as
money.
this. Well, some do. Some do.
Like,
Some of those guys are senior vice presidents at whatever that make $450,000 a year.
okay, what
And
do they have a
you do that
PhD in?
who cares?
Well, I mean, I care because I don't think I don't want people listening to this to be like, oh, if I get a PhD, I'll make 400,000 a year. If you get a PhD, you are a retard.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The, think about people that got their PhDs 30 years ago.
Okay,
You know,
sure,
not people that get their PhDs now.
right.
If you got
And
a
they
PhD in
probably,
chemistry 30 years ago, you're probably pretty well off or a retard.
yeah, probably you. If you don't work in academia, then you probably got a job at like Dow Chemical or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now you're a manager. Now you're a higher up. Now you might run a little division or you might do research.
but you're not like old money rich. You're just well off.
Yeah.
So you're
Well,
still
even the old money rich people suffer from this.
they don't know about good food.
No.
Why is this?
Yeah, I've watched old money rich people eat
What do they eat?
literal garbage
Like
plates at
Jimmy
country clubs.
John's?
No, no, no. Like faux fancy food. Like a little shitty steak with some green beans.
Oh, okay, yeah, I do know what you're talking about with that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Like I remember I was at the what's it called, Atlantis in the Bahamas. Do you know that place?
The big resort.
It's a big resort. They've got a cool slide. They've got a water slide that goes through a shark tank, which
That
is
sounds
kind of
fun.
that's pretty cool. But it's also like a big casino thing. I think it might be a Trump thing. Is this a Trump thing? Let me. But the point that I was going to make is that yeah, they had like these restaurants and they were very expensive, but they were like that. It was like here's a steak with some green beans on the side. And you're like, it's not
Yeah,
bad,
like
I guess, but it's not
I could
like
make a better steak at home though,
yeah,
or like just some shitty pasta not cooked too well, or food that comes out half cold
yeah.
at the dinner,
Well,
and everybody raves about it, and you're sitting there, you're going like, I made a better steak than this last night. What the fuck am I doing here?
yeah. I mean, if your food was half cold, that's a little extreme.
I wouldn't say cold. I would say like lukewarm.
Yeah,
You know, it's like wedding dinner food.
wedding dinner food.
Yeah, people that think wedding like
Is what's up.
hors d'oeuvres are like the peak of the best food that they've ever had.
But does anyone?
Not all wedding hors d'oeuvres are bad, but like
Yeah.
it's not what I expect from a $200 plate.
Well, I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't buy a $200. I mean, I guess when in Rome, if it's that or go hungry, you gotta buy the $200 plate.
Never bought a $200 plate dinner.
Um, I mean, I don't think so, but I also don't have the receipts from every restaurant that I've ever been to. They've
Well,
got a
see now
golf
if
course.
you're in your 20s, definitely go and get the $200 plate dinner. But by the time you hit 27, nah.
Now, why would you get a $200 plate dinner though?
God, you got everybody's got to do it once.
I guess do it once.
Yeah, like
Just so that you can be like, it's not that good.
yeah, I had like a 13 course chef tastings menu once for like $1.85,
Okay.
and
Was
then
it good?
oh, it was fantastic. It was 13 courses, just
See, I'd get full. I couldn't eat 13
I,
courses.
I
Were they
was I
small?
was after like they were all small, but after like the 10th one, you're just like, dude, I'm full.
I like to do tapas.
It's like tapas times like 13 at like with like the gastropub Michelin style thing.
Did I tell
And
you? Did I tell you about
frankly,
that?
they comped all my drinks too.
Oh, really? Why'd they do that? Just because you bought the
Uh,
thing? You bought that
they
180?
sat us 20 minutes late, so they
Oh,
comped all of my drinks for the entire night.
nice. Did you make them regret that?
No, no, they didn't tell us till the end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I only had like 3 martinis.
Nice, nice, nice. Did you hear about that new Jamaican, Scottish, and Spanish fusion restaurant?
Jamaican, Scottish, Spanish fusion.
Yeah, it's called Tapas the Morning to Ja.
That's
R.I.P.
horrible.
The guy that I forget that. Like I do want to. I didn't make that up. The guy that made that up is dead. Um, so I guess it doesn't matter that I don't remember him because he's dead. But no, he was. What's that guy's name? It's like Harry something. He was on Parks and Rec. He was the animal control guy.
Not ringing a bell.
Parks and Recreation Animal
Oh, there are
Control.
only 2 people from that show: Aubrey Plaza and Nick Offerman.
Which one was Nick Opperman? He's is he the libertarian
Yep.
guy? He's actually kind of gay in real life.
Is he?
Well, he's turned his character from Parks and Rec into a shtick, like a real shtick, and he has like an artisanal wood crafting company that he like sells overpriced furniture, but it's all like LGBTQ.
Is
It's
he gay?
I think he might be. Or no, he
No,
played
he's
a
not
gay guy.
gay.
He played a gay guy in
He played a gay guy in The Last of Us.
yes. Who tell me the names of the animal control character guys. I'm on IMDb right now. This is fascinating stuff that we're doing, I know. Harris Whittles. Everybody should look up Harris Whittles. Because he is hilarious. And then he overdosed on heroin and died.
Oh,
Just like Mitch Hedberg, all the real ones. Rip. Pour one out. Pour one out.
you gotta OD on heroin before you get to the end of your retirement savings.
Yeah, you eat. Yeah, if you ever are running low, if you're looking at your retirement account, you're like, I don't know how we're gonna make ends meet. Just OD on heroin.
Yep.
You won't have to worry about it.
What can go wrong?
All right. So what other? So what? So how does this Japanese housing complex factor into your retirement savings? And is this something that you're actually going to do?
Well,
And how do I get in on the ground floor?
so the idea would be, okay, you wait until you either have foreign income or income that you can take overseas, right? So like 1099 that doesn't care where you work, or until you're cashing out in your 401ks. You buy the whole apartment complex with a couple buddies. You all sell your houses in America. Go over there, each pitch in 100, 200 grand. Get the whole apartment complex. And that's basically it.
I mean, this sounds like a good bachelor pad plan, but what about those of us with families?
Well, see, that's the beautiful part, though. You can have up to 8 kids.
Well, no, because you've already put five. You've already made five of the apartments somebody's apartment.
Well, you could also rent them to your buddies, right? Nothing says you can't rent them to your buddies. Nothing says that your buddies are going to be financially secure.
Well, so this is now
You
you're
could you
for
could
everybody
slowly
that
sneak
for every
kids in the
you
equation.
you could slowly trade buddies for kids is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. So you kick out Jim because he's kind of doesn't pay his rent,
Yeah,
and then you have a kid,
and then you
maybe
put
even
the
a half
kid in the.
Japanese kid, right? They
There
need
you
the
go.
people.
They do need the
Uh,
people.
and then your other buddy Ted, maybe he meets a nice Japanese girl, he moves out, boom,
Yeah.
another kid, right? You just keep piling on the kids.
So each kid gets their own apartment.
You could theoretically comfortably have up to 6 kids.
Well, I could.
Oh, 7 kids, and then share the one with your wife.
Yeah. Well, one of them's a full size kitchen though. One of the apartments is a kitchen.
Well, I mean, you don't have to permanently make it a full size kitchen.
But you like six is plenty of kids anyway.
Yeah, yeah, have
And you
six
could
of them. I'm
live in
sure
a
the captain's be
or
happy.
and you could live in a kitchen if you had to. You could
Well,
put a
I mean,
bunk bed in the corner of the kitchen.
you just need some more countertop space and maybe a second fridge in there, right? That's not permanent. You get some portable countertops and a second fridge, and boom, you have a nice kitchen.
I think the real problem with this plan though is that like I'm probably not going to move to Japan
Well, why not?
because it's far away from here. And I don't speak Japanese and I don't want to be on a 9-hour time difference from my current like I would have to do a bunch of shit and I'd have to either eat my chickens or get rid of them and it would just be like a hassle. Now I could sell my property and my property and just buy that apartment complex
Yeah,
cash. If it's like if you like send it to me, like right, like send me the Zillow.
I mean, I'll send you a list of them.
Yeah.
It's not just one, right? It's not just we found one. It's we found 20 or 30.
Yeah.
As long as you're not in Tokyo or any of the Tokyo prefectures,
I have to run it by the wife.
like Osaka or Sapporo or Kyoto, like
what do you think the rules on having chickens in your apartment are in Japan?
I bet they don't have any.
Like
Uh,
if I bought an 8 unit apartment and one of the units was actually like the chicken
just
coop.
chickens.
Yeah, just for the chickens. And then I'd let them out and they'd be like wandering the halls.
You realize that's like 8 US a pound for chicken, right?
Yeah, but they're like our little pets.
They're like $60 a pop.
What chickens? Chickens are less than $60.
Not Japan.
What do you mean?
Processed, broken down chicken, $60.
What?
Yeah,
$60 to buy a chicken to eat?
if you broke down an entire chicken,
What do you
thighs,
mean?
breasts,
What do you mean
legs,
by like? Wait,
old
so is
grocery store,
the cost of living is high in Japan?
just food, just food.
Well, that I mean, food's kind of important.
Yeah,
What?
I mean, well, really just meat.
Oh, because they're all vegetarians or whatever. They eat rice,
Well, I mean, a lot of their diet is rice and noodles.
seaweed,
Yeah,
and then like a little tiny bit of fish.
like some sprouts. A little bit of fish, a little bit of beef. Like beef is a delicacy over there just because of the price.
So what you're saying is I could be making 60 bucks a pop just processing chickens in my apartment?
I mean, if you did the full like start to finish, like you grew the chicken
Yeah.
and you sold it, you packaged it and sold it at your doorstep, then yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
wouldn't
you
pack.
could.
I would put it in a like I would just put it in a box.
Well, you gotta that's like at the store price.
Yeah, but people pay more for like local shit. Like
I don't
I
know
can
about
charge
I don't know if in
I charge
Japan.
I charge more for my eggs than they charge at the grocery store for the eggs.
What are you charging? $10 a dozen now?
Well, not right now. Well, they
What are you
haven't.
charging for your eggs?
Well, so they haven't been laying as much because it's been cold. So I actually
Uh-huh.
have been eating most of my eggs and giving some to the neighbors. I haven't been selling them. I haven't updated my sign. So I'm trying to decide what I want to sell my eggs for.
So right now, if you go to like a random grocery store, it's $6 a dozen
Oh yeah,
on Walmart.
I was looking at the prices. I was looking at the prices at like Walmart. It was like $5.
You could get away with $6 a dozen
Yeah,
with no issues.
organic, free range, non-GMO.
In fact, at $6 a dozen, you'd probably sell out. within an hour.
But that's what I'm saying. I could sell roosters, processed roosters, and people come and they give me $60, and I just give them a box, and they open the box up, and it's like hacked up, bloody chicken bits.
Yeah, they don't want that.
It's like leaking. The box is stained.
Yeah,
It's like dripping out of the bottom. The blood is dripping out of the bottom.
this isn't like rural Alabama. You can't just like hand somebody a box of half chopped up chicken and
No,
in
that's
here
the real. That's that real shit. I'll pluck
give me
them.
6,000 yen for this.
I'll pluck them. I'll pluck them. You know,
Yeah, you gotta break them down. You gotta fully process them.
I will. Well, some people want the whole chicken though. Like, you know, I'll take out. I'll gut them, but you want to put the stuffing in there or whatever, in the crevice.
What is the cost of chicken in Japan? Oh, it's actually not that bad. Chicken goes for about $5 a pound there.
My wife might be
that's
down
cheap.
to move to Japan.
Yeah, $5 a pound for chicken, not bad at all.
We lived in Japan before. She liked it.
See? Yeah. Get a whole apartment complex. Have those 7 kids.
There you go. I
You
don't know
know?
about the 7 kids.
Have 4 of them.
Have 4. 4 is good.
Get a 6-unit apartment complex and have 4 kids. Then each one of them can have their own apartment when they grow up.
And you could put fireman poles down through it so that you can get between the apartments faster.
Yeah, what else are you gonna do with all that QILD money?
I think you're vastly overestimating the amount of QILD money I have, but
Like $2,000 a month.
oh yeah, I have over that now.
Yeah, $2,000 a month plus a paid off house is
It's pretty good. That's pretty good.
that's not far from retirement, right?
Oh man, I'm almost gonna get out from beneath my spy calls.
Oh,
With these stonks going down. What about stonks going down right now? Should people be worried about stonks going down?
no.
We're off the highs. Spy went from like 618 to 575, which is a pretty.
Like a 5% retracement. Who cares?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. But do you think that it will continue to go down? Do you think it'll go back up?
So historically, during Trump's last presidency, the S&P stayed pretty flat.
Yeah.
Mostly because part of the original Trump presidency was to pay off the Fed deficits, which he actually started to succeed to do until the COVID crisis happened.
Yeah.
So we'll see what fiscal responsibility brings to the country. But I have noticed that people have been kind of abandoning the tech side of the house.
Which is not super good actually for QILD.
Yeah. And they've been switching to the
Geico?
industrial / historical big name producers.
I mean, that sounds good. Well, that would be like Spy. Like Spy will be re-indexed if that happens, right?
So if we, it will eventually. It will eventually. Spy is overly heavy in
tech
right now.
Right.
But so if we look at the Nasdaq, right?
Yeah.
We're almost 10% down. We're like 9.5% down from the highs.
Nasdaq is?
Yeah. So and that's the Nasdaq 100.
Right.
So if you look at something like SCHD, which tracks the Dow Dividend 100,
it's up today.
We're about the same percentage off our highs, but we've been up the last 2-3 months.
Right.
So people are rebalancing their portfolios. All that's going on. So the Russell 2000 or the Schwab Broad Market Fund might be a little bit more attractive right now than your standard just S&P 500. But I think it's always a good time to buy stocks.
I mean, historically, if you bought the S&P 500 index anytime in like its 100 plus year history, it would be higher than when you bought it 10 years later.
Yes, and if you bought during the dot-com bubble, you wouldn't have made any money until 2011.
But you wouldn't have, like, it would have. So if you had bought at the high, like let's say 1999, right,
Yeah.
and then you fast forwarded to 2009, you would not be down. You might not have be up by much, but you would be like it's never went down over a period of 10 years.
Yeah, well, from if you bought at the peak in 2000, you would not have made money until 2012.
What do you mean by make money? Because I'm pretty sure that that what I read was like
So
the
the peak
nominal value, right? Like,
the peak in 2000 was 1500 S&P.
okay,
We didn't get back there till 2012.
let's take
We
a
peaked
gander at
again
this.
right around 15, right before the '08 crash.
Yeah, so if we look at 8/13/2000, we're at 149. So we would have to go to 8/13/2010, where we would be at, sorry, I almost got it. 8 8 2010 is 108. It's which is lower.
Call it a 13-year period where there was a 13-year period where the S&P stayed relatively flat in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. Well, so it I'm looking at the chart here, right? We had a big dip in 2008. Actually, the 2000, so if you look at, like, if you go and look at the charts, right, from about 2016 to now has been crazy growth, right?
Yeah.
Even the COVID dip, like, is crazy. And there's a big dip here in like 2022. I don't know what was going on there. Maybe Russia, I don't know. But even that is like, it's a big dip, but it's a dip that's nowhere near retracing where it was. And then if you go all the way back to, like, the 90s, it went from $44 in 1993 to like 90 to $89 in 2002, right? It's like, and now it's like $575. So it's going up so fast.
Well, a lot of it's also inflation, right?
Well, no, I mean, that's what I was going to say, is like probably mostly inflation, but that's why you have to invest in the stock market, because that the inverse of that is that your dollar is worth less, right? So because the S&P 500 is priced in dollars, as your dollar is worth less, a share of SPY is worth more, priced in dollars.
It's an automatic inflation hedge, and I would say that as long as interest rates are below 5 to 6%, somewhere in that range, you should generally put most of your money in the market.
Which it sounds like they're going to start doing again. They're going to cut the rates again.
We'll see. We'll see. They want to, but
you don't think they're going to?
That's a good question. I think they'll do another quarter point cut, and then they'll kind of just stop. Like, there's no real reason to keep crashing the rates with the market this high. And the only thing that people are saying that the market's been crashing the last week, which is just kind of a joke compared to the highs.
Yeah, like if you look at the historic chart.
Yeah, like you look at the last 6 months of the stock market, where
nothing.
Yeah, this dip is kind of a joke, right? This is just a normal, like, retracement in the grand scheme of things. So
what we call a buying opportunity.
Yeah, buy a little bid more. Buy some QYLD. It's down to 17.4, 17.3 last time I looked. get some monthly income going, and then maybe you can finally retire when you're 65 and a half and you won't have to get a job at Costco.
Although, as we covered earlier in an earlier episode, if you do get a job at Costco, you can make quite a bit of money there.
$32 an hour.
Which is not bad. All right. Anything else that we need to cover in this episode? What are we talking about?
We're talking about retirement. So, what's the moral of the story?
Yeah, what is the moral of the story if you're a Zoomer?
If you're a 16-year-old Zoomer,
is Zoomer 16? Because I always think of like a Zoomer as being like 22. Is that too old?
I don't know how generations work. If you're a 16-year-old Zoomer, save as much as possible. If you're a 22-year-old Zoomer, party as much as possible. If you make money, max out the 401k. If you're tolerant to non-Latin alphabets, consider Japan maxing.
What about if you're unemployed?
If you're unemployed, well, you might want to stay that way.
Stay that way.
I'm just kidding. Get a fucking job, you lazy bum.
If you don't have a job, it is because you are. I'm just getting this. Dave Ramsey's texting me because he apologized that he lost his cool at the diner. He does want to come back, but he said he just wanted to leave this note. He wanted to let everybody know that if you're unemployed, it is because of a personal failing on your part, and you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And when he got his first job, he actually walked right into the factory and gave the hiring manager a firm handshake and said, "Sir, I'm your man." And he was like, "By golly, I like the cut of your jib." And they just made him a manager. So that's how you got to do it.
Yep. Just walk into an office building, walk into a factory.
Yeah.
And just start shaking people's hands.
And say, like, I'm here to run your company.
And when the cops come, you know that you just need to try harder.
Yeah. You weren't wearing the right shoes. You weren't wearing the right shoes.
The cops showing up to you just entering an office building or a factory and shaking hands with people, they're a test. If you can deal with them, you've got the job.
Yeah. Basically, you have to talk your way out of an arrest, out of a trespassing charge.
Yep. How else are you supposed to talk your way out of the negotiations with the Japanese, huh?
Exactly. Did I ever tell you about the guy? Well, I was in a Japanese taxi with a friend of mine, and we were both drunk, and he went Hancho, because that's what he used to call them. I don't know why. And he said, "Hiroshima." And we got kicked out of the cab.
Said Hiroshima?
Well, he said Hiroshima, and then he went, and you can't see the hand motion that I'm making, but he did he was trying to do like a mushroom cloud with his hand, like opening it and going up, like.
Oh yeah, that'll get you kicked out of a cab.
Follow me for more great tips on how to make friends and influence people in other parts of the world.